Welcome back to the Sports Performance Podcast. I'm Ross, coach at SBG Aberdeen. We've got Casey, coach at Shropshire, and we're joined today by a very special guest, Mark Macqueen. Hi, Mark.
Hello, how are we?
We're good. So we do a Sports Performance Podcast for our members, focusing on all areas of sports performance, funnily enough. And today's topic is going to be based around strength and conditioning, which, Mark, obviously you've got a lot of history in, a lot of success in. So people might have seen recently that you're doing really well in jiu-jitsu, just qualified for the ADCC World Championship Finals. Can you just give people a quick resume as to your background in strength and conditioning, please?
So I started powerlifting when I was 15 years old, and I won the Commonwealth, European and World Championships at 22 years old. I won the Scottish and British like 5 to 6 times, maybe slightly more. And at 23 years old, I totaled 920 kilos, which was a 365 kilo squat. My best bench was 210 kilos and my best deadlift was 350 kilos. And that 920 kilo total was the biggest ever in Scotland. And I was the first person to total 900 kilos and the first person to squat 800 pounds in Scotland. And then also I have been a strength and conditioning coach for 12 years now as well.
So you've got your own strength and conditioning business that runs primarily online.
Yep.
And you have a broad range of athletes that work with you, including some athletes from SBG Aberdeen and some athletes that are making strides in jiu-jitsu. I know you've been doing some work with Ben Bennett, who just got to the finals at 88 kilograms in the ADCC Worlds. So not only have you got a history of success competitively in powerlifting, but you're now working with athletes and having success with them.
Yes.
And I realised that wasn't a question. And you're having success yourself, having transferred over to jiu-jitsu. So you've been doing jiu-jitsu for about 5 years now?
Yes, right? it'll be 5 years in May.
Okay. And from humble beginnings, just doing it as a hobby.
Yeah.
You've now had quite a lot of triumphs in jiu-jitsu to the point where you've made it to the finals. So Casey and I wanted to get you on our chat because we're really keen to get the perspective of someone who is well credentialed in strength and conditioning for themselves, for working with athletes, but is also able to do it while doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Because I'll hand over to Casey to start asking you some questions in a minute, but we've got this general idea that a lot of strength and conditioning coaches break athletes rather than make athletes. And I think you do a really good job at making athletes.
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake people make when they are coaching athletes is one, trying to be fancy, so like trying to do things that look fancy or make them look intelligent, or and secondly is overworking athletes, because the reality is you got to break it down. It's like why are we doing strength and conditioning? And it's like, well, we're doing it to get better jiu-jitsu. So if it is even remotely at the expense of jiu-jitsu, then or your sport, then it is literally pointless. Yeah.
Do you want to come in there, Casey?
Yeah, so I think these are the exact 2 points that I make all the time on this, like, over and over again on these chats. It's basically what I get. Obviously, a lot of people contact me to work with fighters, or maybe they're already working with fighters, and it's always the case that let's say their philosophy and what they tell us they're going to do never matches up with like work on the ground. So they'll be, we're about injury prevention and we're about, we're going to get them to do, functional training. But the actual results are that they come into training just tired.
Yep.
So we don't see any real development. In fact, there's usually a tail off in their skill levels. And yeah, we just see an increase in injuries, if anything. Also, what we do is now if anyone says that they want to work with, say, like a team of fighters or competitors at a gym, I ask them to come and train for 2 months first. And no strength and conditioning coach has ever come to our gym has made it through that 2-month period without getting an injury, and they just do beginners classes. So it's like their philosophy of training and methodology don't seem to match up to what happens. And obviously, with when I met you up in SBG Aberdeen, it's good to see someone moving from like a strength-based sport and then intelligently going into jiu-jitsu, and clearly not only not getting injured but excelling in developing in that sport as well. So so like a few of the things which we want to talk to you about with that. Also, I've obviously done a bit of due diligence on you to as we were going to be interviewing you. So I spoke to a few people that I've known with you or worked with you as well, and something I was really impressed with is that you get clients who are older doing jiu-jitsu, but you manage to get them on training regimes, and they make like a measurable progress, let's say in strength, but they're still able to do jiu-jitsu as well.
Yep.
And so that's something like I said, that I think shouldn't be that impressive, because you think every strength conditioning coach should be able to do that, but it actually is impressive because none of the other ones which I've ever seen to really work with, I think, bar one, has ever managed to do it. So, just if you could maybe talk us through a bit of your methodology and philosophy towards training, and maybe some of the process of what you do with an athlete when you get them.
Yeah, definitely. So if we start with if I get someone that's maybe a little bit older, hasn't maybe particularly been in the gym or an extensive background in athletics or sports, the fundamental thing is what are we trying to achieve here? Well, we're trying to achieve getting stronger, and we're trying to achieve getting fitter. So they're two things that we're looking to do, and both of them are very measurable. Now, the thing is that usually what is going to be a roadblock that we have is that they're not going to know how to lift. That's one thing. Or if they do know how to lift, they know how they've learned incorrectly from previous years. And then lastly is the resilience of their body is very low. So what we need to do is we need to start implementing basically movement patterns that are like the fundamental movement patterns, and we need to start very gradually exposing them to load. So the things that I look at to begin with is that I would base like my program around is one, we're going to be looking to do some form of cardio, because and I know people might view going to jiu-jitsu as cardio, but in a very ideal world, we're hopefully going to get to a point where it's not, you're good enough and efficient enough to where it's not going to be cardio. So we need to be doing some form of cardio. So what I would like to do is I would use a piece of kit that's very low impact. So like my favourite is the rowing machine, for example, because there's no impact. It's not like you're going out and running, and like running has one of the highest injury rates of any sport. So we're going to do like the rowing machine, for example. It's very low impact, and it's very, very measurable. Like we can literally track like 0.2 to 0.2 second increases on it. So that's what I would look at for cardio. And then for weights, I look for basically specific movement patterns. So I would base my program around, I want a squat movement. So the squat movement could be like a barbell squat. It could be like a safety squat bar squat. It could be a split squat. It could be bodyweight squat. It could be any squat variation, but I'm looking for a squat variation. I'm looking for a hip hinge variation. So a hip hinge is a deadlift or any variation of a deadlift. So it could be a barbell deadlift. It could be a barbell stiff leg deadlift. It could be dumbbell stiff leg deadlifts. It could be trap bar deadlifts. Or even if maybe someone's, not actually maybe got the core stability to like safely protect their back and brace properly, we could even raise the height off the floor, so like the range of motion shorter. Any form of a deadlift, and then I'd be looking at any form of a horizontal push and pull. So that would be any bench or bench variation, any row or row variation, and then I'd be looking at a vertical push and pull. So it could be any form of an overhead press variation, or any form of a pull up or pull down variation. Then I would throw in some arms, some biceps and triceps, and then I would look at a core stability exercise. So usually my favourite is going to be things like dead bugs to begin with, and then maybe someone that's maybe a little bit more experience, you could start to progress it. But that's what I would look at, and that's what I would base the whole program around. And then basically, what I'm looking to achieve, so like if someone's pretty brand new, is I'm actually not really interested in what they can lift to begin with, and actually like I would much rather they're lifting, with like 50% of their capability, because right now that's not what we're not looking to achieve. That we're looking to achieve actually getting into the gym, learning the movement patterns, exposing your body to load, and exposing like the joints to load through different joint angles. So an example is, it might be alarming, but like how many people that are, over the age of say 30 or 40 have like actually loaded their knee and hip to like a deep squat with like a barbell on it or something like that? Very, very few. So I think it'd be ludicrous to start, looking to like load that super heavy to begin with. And then just very, very gradually exposing them to more and more load. And that's what I look at. And then, of course, you definitely can start to make things a little bit more difficult as time goes on, and you can start to add things in. So, like maybe you could look at like plyometrics and stuff like that. But honestly, I feel like if you've got somebody who's untrained or, isn't very resilient, I think like, going and doing plyometrics and stuff like that is not very sensible, because like you're now basically putting joints under very dynamic loading, and then you just end up breaking people. And then what happens is that you break somebody, they get hurt, they lose their confidence, they're off for a month or two, they get even less resilient, even less fit, and then they come back, and then it's just like this never-ending cycle. Whereas I feel like you start really basic, really easy, and you just gradually build people up, and then that's it. That's what I do. And then if someone was a little bit more athletically inclined, or they've done sports their whole life, or they're actually like a pretty high level athlete as is, then yeah, you can maybe start a little bit aggressive. But again, I think the thing is that the mistake people make is that, so like if I've began working with some people in jiu-jitsu who are, really, really high level, like really, really high level in jiu-jitsu, but actually in the gym, they're just beginners, It's like, it would be like me coming in, like I came into jiu-jitsu as a world-class powerlifter. It'd be like me thinking, right, I'm going to start jiu-jitsu and I'm going to start training, with world-class people and hanging with them and training 2 or 3 times a day. It would be ludicrous, but for some reason, strength and conditioning coaches, they don't seem to be able to see it the other way, So that's kind of what the kind of way I would view it as, is like, just because someone's coming from a really high level of an earth sport doesn't mean that they're actually high level in the gym. They aren't the same thing. What would happen is, if you get someone that's really high level in our sport, if they come into the gym and they're not particularly high level, they're going to probably improve and take to it a lot quicker than somebody that's just untrained entirely. But I think fundamentally, things kind of stay the same.
Great. It's the other thing I feel from when people tell me you're strength conditioning coaches. I feel like more that they're, let's say, PTs with different branding. And so it's always like trying to, like I say, get these show off workouts where they seem to be doing like really weird stuff that does break them in some way. There's nothing I hate more than a coach than I get people come tired into training. Especially if they've got a fight or a competition coming up. And especially if they then start complaining about, oh, this joint's hurting or that joint's hurting. It's like, well, the workouts I want to do, I now can't do with them. The football manager, Neil Warnock, says he just won't have those people around. He'll just kick them out. I was like, it makes me sick to look at you. Just get out. But it's kind of like how you feel as a coach. It's very frustrating. And so, but I think some of this, what I've thought over the years, is that because I think sometimes athletes are a little bit to blame, because they'll go to a strength and conditioning coach, say, I've got like this competition or this fight in 4 to 6 weeks' time. And so like they feel like, it's like the strength and conditioning coach feels like they need to get them like maximum impact in this 4 to 6 weeks. And what they should really be doing is peaking in terms of technique for about 4 to 6 weeks, I think. But basically, you need to blow them out for that 4 to 6 weeks. If you get someone that comes to you and they're like, I've got this competition in 4 to 6 weeks, do you I think the answer is going to be yes, but you take them through the same process. You don't take them up straight away. You keep them on the same start point and take them through the same journey anyway.
Honestly, if someone came to me and said, I've got a fight, like an MMA fight in 4 weeks, I'd honestly say I think we should wait until your fight's over. There's nothing I'm going to be able to do in 4 weeks that I feel is going to really benefit them. If I'm being entirely honest, if they were very, very keen and they're like, no, I want to start now, I'd be like, okay, well that's absolutely fine. But again, honestly, for the next 4 weeks, like, there's very little that we're going to do. I think honestly I would probably go the other way, and I would just start introducing these movements and just keeping things really, really low stress. But I think the thing is that a really good saying that I like, and I like to think about this like the week of competitions, for example, because you see people the week of a competition and they're training like absolute mad and they're going crazy. It's like very little can be gained in a week, but a lot can be lost. And I feel like it'd be the same for like 4 weeks out. I feel like if someone came to me 4 weeks out, for that 4 weeks, honestly, I would be like, there's not particularly very much we could do. If it was somebody that's doing jiu-jitsu, I would be more inclined to take them on, because I feel like it's probably less, it's maybe a little bit less stressful peaking for a jiu-jitsu competition, because you go and it's probably not quite as harsh on the body, and then a lot of time as well people just will do a comp and then they're back in training on Monday morning or Monday. But again, it would be the same stuff. It would be the same stuff. I'd introduce them to the movements. Everything would be pretty, nice and low stress, and nothing would be overly difficult. But I think the biggest mistake that people make is, and I know you said it drives you crazy, and also like Neil Warnock says, you won't have these people around. It really it annoys me how much it annoys me, and I sometimes almost don't know why I get so annoyed, but it actually annoys me to the point of like I'm unbelievably triggered. But you have people doing things and it like looks fancy, and it's like, but it's actually not achieving anything but fatiguing them. It's not achieving anything, and it's just causing fatigue, and it's like, we're not getting any, there's no reward, and then we're just creating a bunch of fatigue, and it is to just make them look fancy or make them look intelligent. It's kind of like, like I've had, you be around people and they use ridiculously fancy words or big words, and they almost use it in incorrect contexts and stuff, but it's because they're trying to make themselves come across as more intelligent. And I feel that's why a lot of strength and conditioning coaches are doing that. They're doing these things that don't really tend to have much application, but like they're doing it to make themselves come across as more intelligent. And I don't know if it's like a marketing ploy or a marketing strategy, or it's because they maybe feel slightly insecure about themselves. But honestly, like the stuff that I do, sometimes it's like it's so straightforward. It's actually almost sometimes a little bit. It looks a little bit boring, Like I'll use myself as an example. I've used the same strength and conditioning program for myself for the last 20 to 24 months. Like I've not changed anything. I've not changed movements. In fact, that's not true. I've added in some different plyometrics. That's it and that's only been the last few weeks. I've added in a few different plyometrics, but it's been the same for like 24 months. Now, I feel like I do change people's programming a lot more frequently than that, because I feel like it can be very monotonous, and like it is that fine line between doing what works, but also like keeping somebody engaged as well, because like you're keeping somebody engaged. But like again, I think that's a personality thing. Like me myself, like I'm very happy just to be like, if something's put on paper and it's like, this is what you need to do, I'm just happy to crack on and do it. I'm not particularly bored about the enjoyment aspect. So like I've done the same thing for the last 2 years, and every single like 5 or 6 week block, I've just got a little bit better and a little bit better. And then over 2 years, that will like compound to be a pretty huge increase. But yeah, no, it drives me crazy as well. Like, I think people do it to just seem more intelligent or look different or look fancy or catch people's eyes. And I feel like it's a whole load of nothing, and it just creates a load of fatigue.
So a couple of things I just wanted to touch on there before I kind of forget what you've said for most. I I'm very much similar with my strength conditioning routine. Has looked exactly the same for the last 2 years as well. The only thing that's checked, like I've had knee surgery a few months ago, so the weight's gone down, but effectively everything else is more or less the same. And I was speaking to one of my students about this, who was like changing his, like when I went back and looked for his program, and it changes massively every 4 weeks. And what I was trying to get across to him was what I feel one of the benefits of doing the same thing over and over again is, so all my cardio is done on an assault bike, and I just stick with that. But so his argument was that you need to change it in order to get the right stimulus to be able to change or to improve. My argument for this is that I'll become more efficient at the bike, and so it's less like central nervous system fatigue on me because I'm getting more efficient at it. I can measure the progress a bit better. But also, as I get towards a certain stage, it gives me some of that energy back to use in training again. So I feel that when I become efficient in my workout routine, I can still progress in that, but then I've got more in the tank for training. And I think I'm sure there's a lot of ways to describe that effect. But that's kind of my general thinking is if you do something that's more similar in your strength conditioning, that you end up getting towards a stage where you are actually getting towards peak fitness and you have more in the tank left for your skills training. So firstly, I was wondering if that's kind of like how you feel about it. And then the other thing I was just wondering was, obviously you've started to, like, you've been doing the same thing for 2 years, so leading on from that, I suppose getting in towards what you think's reasonable strength standards and reasonable fitness standards, how you measure those, and when you think, okay, like, do you ever think this is enough?
Yeah. So your first point, I completely agree with. I think the thing of like having to change things to change the stimulus to provide your body to grow, I feel it's in one way it's correct, but it's completely flawed. So what I mean by that is that a change of stimulus is simply just doing more than you've previously done. So for example, if I've only ever done 100 kilos in the bench press for 4 reps, and then in this new block I've done 100 kilos for 5 reps, that's a new stimulus. I've done more than I've ever done before. I like to think of stuff as like, just like jiu-jitsu. Not to the same extent, but lifting weights is a skill, and it's as simple as that. And I have all these different movements, and these movements are a skill themselves. So, for example, like a squat, bench, and a deadlift, that's obviously what powerlifting was. That's just a skill. Those movements are just a skill. And, when I first started powerlifting, 14 years ago, when I was 15, it was like, it was called like West Side and Conjugate and stuff, and it was very, very popular. It's like, you're 1 week you're doing a squat, the next week you change the variation of a squat. You go from a squat to a box squat to a box with bands to a box with chains or speed work and all that, and all this different stuff. And I remember I was really lucky because I had a coach. I had the same coach my entire time I did powerlifting, and we literally just did squat, bench, deadlift. We did a few variations added on, and we did some accessories. But like every week, I was just squatting, and it's like I'm just getting better at that skill every single time. And then what I feel happens is that the people that are changing stuff a lot is that their actual skill level of the movement is very, very low. So then what's happening is they're not very efficient at it, and then as a result of that, I feel like that's hampering the performance. So to take that back to like strength and conditioning for like jiu-jitsu or your sport, it's the perfect thing in jiu-jitsu. It's like if someone's not efficient at jiu-jitsu, they're going to get exhausted in a match. Like for example, if you took somebody who was like a marathon runner, who weighed like 65 kilos, I know for a fact that I could roll way longer than him and not get anywhere near as tired. But there's no way I'm as cardiovascularly fit, but I'm much more efficient. Just like I'll come up against people who I'm probably maybe fitter than, but they're far more skilled and far more efficient on the mat, and therefore I'm going to be expending more energy, so there I'm going to get more tired. So when I think about that with weights, I think it's the same thing. I want to get their squat, bench, and deadlift to a point where it's as efficient as it can be and it's as highly skilled as it can be, and then one, that's going to make it safer, so the risk of injury is going to go down. Two, their mobility is going to like be improving as a result of that, because if you're taking, someone squatting full range of motion consistently, that's going to be improving their mobility, and three, like their joint health and all those things are going to come. So the only fatigue that we're going to create from that is from actually doing the movement itself. We're not going to be getting beat up from like a lack of efficiency from like performing it wrong or executing it wrong. So I definitely agree with that 100%. I'd want to have like a list of movements that we do, we're very efficient at, we can perform very, very safely, and then I feel that basically has the risk of injury as low as possible. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I don't think it's acceptable to be getting hurt in the gym. Like, for example, I've been lifting weights since I was like 14, and I say I've been powerlifting since I was 15. So I'm now 29, and I have been hurt once in the gym. And that entire time, I had a grade one tear in my adductor once in that entire time. And honestly, the reason for that was because I remember I was going in, and like that weekend I was like, I can't remember, I was like away up north with my friends or something, didn't sleep all weekend properly, came into gym Monday morning and was like squatting like a really heavy weight, and I was just completely under recovered and my body wasn't ready for it. So in 14 years I've been hurt once in the gym. Since doing jiu-jitsu, so you call it 5 years, never once been hurt in the gym. And honestly, I don't really think you should be getting hurt in the gym, because it's so counterintuitive. If someone comes to me to be improving their sport and then they get hurt in the gym and then they can't do their sport, it's like, well, then I've completely and utterly failed is what I'm doing. And I'm not saying that freak accidents or freak things, they obviously can happen, but I really think that it really shouldn't be. The whole point of the gym for me is I'm going to be building people up and building them up, increasing their strength, increasing their muscle mass, making them fitter, improving their mobility, improving their stability, and making them more resilient, so that on the mat they're more resilient. And also as well, one of the big things as well that I think people that people maybe don't think is that not only does being because obviously with jiu-jitsu as well, there's a level of mobility that's higher, I would say, than like it is with maybe some other sports. But one of the problems with becoming much more mobile is then when you become more mobile, you can then lose some stability. So you then lose the ability to like stabilize your joints in these like crazy joint angles, and then people can get hurt. Like you see it with all these like world class Olympic gymnasts have hip replacements by the time they're 30 years old. So if we can get people stronger in the gym and much stronger through like full ranges of motion, then they're going to have a much better ability to stabilize those joints in there in these deeper kind of joint angles, which will then help kind of overcome injury and increase the resilience. But then also, one thing that's really interesting is it's been shown that when the stronger you are and the more muscle you have, if you get injured, your ability to recover from that injury is far quicker than if you were the same person with less strength and less muscle as well. So I think it's that. So yeah, I think I agree with you. I think doing the same things over and over is necessary. And the last point, I know I'm rambling about, but the last point is, if I'm 1 week I'm going out a run, the next week I'm doing burpees, the next week I'm doing hill sprints, and then the next week I'm doing a row machine, you don't actually know you're getting fitter because it's not measurable. How do you measure it? Whereas if I'm on a row machine and I'm doing 10 by 500 meters, and I know that my personal best on that is 1 minute 50 for all 10 intervals, and then a year later my personal best is 1 minute 43, well then that's absolutely objectively I have gotten fitter. There's no ifs, buts or maybes about it. And it's the same with if I'm every 4 weeks I'm doing a squat for 4 weeks and then I'm doing a leg press for 4 weeks and I'm constantly changing it, you don't actually know if you're getting better because it's not trackable. Whereas if I'm like, no, I'm doing the same movement every single week, and it's much easier to measure and it's much easier to track.
But I just want to agree with the other point you were saying now was if you do get injured, I feel like the comeback is much better. So I've just had knee surgery now, and the surgeon commented afterwards and said this is like a full knee replacement job, and the one thing it saved you is how much muscle mass and was on your leg in the first place and how strong it was, because it's completely gone. So it's. I suppose the other side of this, the other thing that drives me a little bit mental is when people do jiu-jitsu and they don't do any strength and conditioning work or any exercise outside of it.
Yeah.
It leads to a few things that I think. I think people that don't do the thing which I try and preach is to work at like a low pace, not too low in jiu-jitsu, but somewhere between kind of 30 and 60%, always about 50% would be ideal. And you're trying to use as little strength and, let's say, basically as little strength, flexibility, all your attributes as possible while you're training. And actually, but the way you push those is to do them in strength conditioning now or in competition. So I'm obviously mainly competition focused when I'm thinking about training. So what I've noticed, people that don't compete and don't do strength conditioning, they tend to go harder in the gym and roll worse. And it's like they try and get their workout through jiu-jitsu. And I was like, for me, that holds you back in terms of getting better at jiu-jitsu, because you're not working as much technique. You are working more strength, and that's what you're trying to work, and so you'll rely on that more. And it's also it's kind of negative, because then you could be doing this much better. I feel that there's no way that a jiu-jitsu workout is going to get you as strong as fit or as going on a bike or a rowing machine or lifting weights. It's just a much easier, like a path of least resistance. It's much easier to get you fit and strong in a gym than it is in a jiu-jitsu ring.
Yeah, no, I agree. And actually, it's funny because I was speaking to somebody that I coached today, and they haven't been doing maybe quite as much cardio recently, and they were like, I feel like I'm getting less fit. Like, I feel like I've been losing fitness over the last 3-4 months, and it's because they're getting much better at jiu-jitsu. So then, like, I'm not actually having to work as hard, and then like I'm now going in, and like before I was leaving and like my heart rate was like through the roof and I was exhausted, and like now I'm leaving and I'm fine. But then I go back to do cardio and I'm like, my numbers are much less, and like that's because I'm getting fitter. And like, so that, I think that proves your point exactly, and that is why I still think it's important to be doing some stuff outside the gym. And I think cardio is so underlooked, and it's I suppose you don't know what you don't know, but it's almost a huge regret of mine, because when I did powerlifting, I never did any cardio, up until, when I stopped from when I was 24. I didn't do any, like, literally at all. I'd maybe on days off, I'd go walking, I'd maybe walk for 10,000 steps, but other than that, and it's a huge regret of mine, because one of the things with cardio that I think so underutilized with being cardiovascularly fit is it simply just allows you to handle so much more workload. So like the fitter you are, the quicker you're going to be able to recover between like, so in the gym, for example, you're going to be able to recover quicker between sets, or in jiu-jitsu, you're going to be able to recover quicker between rounds. You're going to be able to do more, and then also just the amount of workload that you can recover from is massively improved, because your cardio is good, is better as well. And yeah, obviously, you don't want to be you don't want to be gassing out in jiu-jitsu, obviously, as well, both from a efficiency perspective, but I do think, especially as weight classes go up as well in jiu-jitsu, I think cardio almost maybe becomes a little bit more important as well.
Yeah, I think me and Matt Inman have talked about this before, because there's an old saying that you can't teach heart, and we're both thinking, of course you can, it's called cardio. If someone's fit, they just simply don't give up. Where people that are cardiovascularly fit they just do not quit. Whereas the ones that aren't, they're the quitters. It's pretty simple, really.
Yeah, no, like fatigue, it's not, it's that saying again. It's like fatigue makes cowards out of everybody, and it's so true. And it's like as well, like when you're exhausted, your technical ability it tanks. It absolutely tanks. And that's it. So I think being cardiovascularly fit. It's so important for, you know, on competition day. I think it's so important for that, but also I think just for being healthy, but also for actually being able to, you know, like handle more workload and recover from more workload. It's so important. And again, I feel like a lot of people. I just feel like I personally feel like people overcomplicate things, or I feel like coaches overcomplicate things and try and make things look fancy. And, you know, like maybe that's, you know, like I feel like people can, like, you know, set up like circular, you know, you know, a coach will be like, right, I'm going to get my fighters in, and today's a conditioning day, and I'm going to set up circuits, and we're going to do circuits. And then they just absolutely, you know, they do the circuits, and then everyone leaves, and everyone's just absolutely exhausted, like literally exhausted,
It's
and they're dead.
surprising. I've noticed this with like classes when I watch like gyms posting stuff on Instagram, and you notice the amount of busy gyms that effectively seem to just be cardio circuits and not learning to fight.
Yeah, and
I always find it very strange. I was like, well, isn't my job to teach you how to fight? It's not to.
yeah, and
Yeah,
you do. They have people doing like these huge big circuits, and they'll go from station to station to station to station to station, and they'll just kill their athletes, and then they all leave. And it's like, then they'll do it every single week, but it's like, how do you actually know that they're getting fitter? Because you're not tracking it, you know. So on, you know, like on each station, are you tracking like every single thing that they've done in that station, and the next week they need to do more? And I suppose if you were, that is then measurable, but they're not. So it's like, well, you're creating a huge amount of fatigue, you're exhausting them, and it's not actually even measurable because you don't know if you're getting fitter. Whereas if we can go on a piece of cardio kit, whether it be the ski erg or a rowing machine or the assault bike and the rowing machine are my two favourites. Or even like, if, you know, I've got no problem with running at all. I think running is great. I do think I personally prefer things like the rowing machine, especially for combat athletes, because I feel like, you know, you're getting beat up so much that then going out running, you know, on hard pavements and things like that, I feel like it's just more compressive, more compressive force. Whereas the kind of row machine, it's not. But these things are all measurable, and like that's it. The goal, I think, the goal isn't like to have people leaving absolutely dead. The goal is to have people leaving having done a good amount of work that's going to allow them to then build upon and improve upon, and that's it. You know, like never once did I leave. I'll go into like a weight session with the goal of like, I am going to absolutely die here. You know, that's not the goal. You know, don't get me wrong. Like when I'm doing like on a Monday night, for example, leading into trials, I was doing the assault bike 7 miles for time. So I was doing 7 miles for time on the assault bike, and like two weeks out, I done my assault bike 7 miles for time. That was basically going to be like my peak for that. That would have been the last really hard assault bike. And like I had a PB on that, and like don't get me wrong, like I was like, you know, absolutely blowing after it. But like that's also like I've been building up to that over like, you know, it was like 7 or 8 weeks, and it was like one session, and it's also as well it's done after my jiu-jitsu sessions as well. So like then I can go home and rest and recover, and then go to bed, and then wake up the next day. So I'm not saying like, you know, you go into the gym and it's an excuse to like, you know, be a bit soft and not work hard. I'm not saying that, but like there's a fine line between, you know, getting good quality workload in that's going to actually improve you, and like just trying to beast somebody and make them sore for no reason. Because like honestly, like it's very easy to make somebody sore. Just go and make them run a marathon. You know, like I can make anybody sore. It's the easiest thing in the world, but that's not the goal. The goal is to actually get better and improve. And yes, you're going to have to train hard. And yes, weight sessions might be hard, or cardio sessions might be hard, but it needs to be built in intelligently, and it needs to be like fatigue needs to be managed intelligently as well.
I feel like it needs to be on a bit of a foundation as well. What I've noticed when I've
Yeah,
worked with strength and conditioning coaches in the past, and when I was playing rugby, was we had some bad ones, and I always noticed like the ones which would get you to work too hard too soon.
yeah,
Like say like 40% of us would just start dropping like flies from illness or injury within a week or two. You know, it's like pushing you to go, okay, you need to get like, if you're on a bike, you need to hit 100 reps a minute for like 30-second sprints. And so you haven't done any work on that piece of equipment before, and so you're just rushing into this, and it's like you feel afterwards your lungs are bleeding, and then you can't sleep that night, you don't recover well, and then you try and train the next day, you feel terrible, and you break down.
Exactly.
Whereas if you spend a few months building up like fairly slowly, and then go, okay, like yeah, we think we're good for a hard workout, it has a lot more benefit.
Exactly, and it's like I think that the easiest way for people to like almost kind of get their head around it is it is literally like me like 5 years ago going, right, I'm a world champion powerlifter. I've effectively been a professional athlete. Right, I'm going to go to jiu-jitsu and I'm going to start training twice a day, 6 days a week, and I'm going to be hanging with these guys that have been training for 10, 15, 20 years. It's not going. It's like not logical. It's not logical. I'm going to get burnt out and hurt, and it's just not going to work. But people don't see that. People don't see it the other way. And that's it. And it isn't. It's like I've no interest in beasting people and making people sore and tired and exhausted. All I care about is getting proper measurable work done that we can build upon each week and get fitter and stronger. And that's it. And then as well, it's like a lot of people as well. A few strength and conditioning coaches, they don't really understand how to like periodize. Like there's no easy weeks are built in, or people don't build in deload weeks, or and that's it as well. And it's like if I have like if I'm coaching somebody, and let's just say we're going to do like a five week block, for example. It's like week one and two are going to honestly be pretty easy. Like not like they're going to work, but it's going to be pretty easy. Week three is going to be not bad. Week four we're starting to work a little bit now. Week five is like right, we're going to be working hard here for these sets. But then they'd work their top set on week five, for example. We're hopefully going to be hitting a personal best here, and then for the rest of the session, like their back offs and stuff are going to be dropped a little bit further back. So we're pulling the intensity down a little bit more than it was for like other weeks. And it's like just properly building in fatigue management. And then it's like, we hit a PB and it's like, great, right now we're going to pull back for a week or two. We're going to deload, get yourself feeling good, whatnot. And then we begin the process again. And that is it. And it's like, it's not actually about like trying to beat people. It is literally just about trying to properly put things in place that we can build upon from week to week to week. And honestly, genuinely, of a 5 week block, if every week's really, really hard for all 5 weeks, then like you're not going to make week five. If we start at week one and we're almost maxing out our lift, we've got nowhere to go. And where do we go from there? Whereas we just very, very slowly and appropriately build through the weeks. And then obviously the final week, we're hopefully going to hit a PB. Maybe we don't get it, maybe we do. And then, we can deload, and then we can kind of rinse and repeat.
Sure. If you could talk a little bit to us about, I think both of us mentioned recovery a little bit as well. Maybe what your approach to recovery is. Do you go like kind of like perceived exhaustion, if you like, in order to try and get more recovery? And do you play that with the athletes, or do you try and deload it in advance and kind of estimate where it's going to be? Is there any protocols you have to?
So programming wise, so pretty much unless somebody is a complete beginner, I'm going to use like RPE, like rate of perceived exertion, or like it's just a reps and reserve model, and I'm going to use that. And the reason RPE is it's so good is because let's say, for example, so let's say I've got somebody going in and they're on week 3 or 4, say week 4, and they're doing a set of 5 reps and squats at RP8. So like they're going to be working up to a set of 5 reps, and once they've finished that 5 reps, they should have 2 reps in the tank. So basically, it would be a 7 rep max, but they're only doing 5 reps. So they've re-racked it and they have 2 in the tank. That's 7 reps. That's roughly going to be about, I would say, person dependent, but roughly around 84%, 84 to 86% roughly of someone's one rep max. So let's just say someone's 1 rep max is 100 kilos on bench press. So their 7 rep max would be around 82.5 to 85 kilos. But imagine like they've they've had like a really hard week in training on the mats. They're really beat up. They're, maybe their sleep's not been so great, or their nutrition's maybe not been so great, or maybe they've got a lot of life stressors. The chances are when they go into the gym, they're not going to be a 100 kilo bench presser. Maybe they can only bench 95 kilos that day for a 1 rep max, or 92.5. So what I feel RP is really good at is that allows us to take advantage of that, and we can pull the loading back that day. So instead of doing, 82.5 kilos for their top set, maybe they bring it down to 75 kilos. So they hit 75 kilos for their set of 5, and then they've got 2 reps in the tank. So we still achieve the loading and the RP that we were hoping for that day, but we're not going to actually create more fatigue. Whereas if I just written down we're going to bench press 82.5, if they go in, that might then be like a 5 rep max on that day. So it's a RP 10, or maybe they even miss a rep. So then that's going to just further exacerbate the fatigue issue. It's just going to throw fatigue through the roof. And then it's going to be, then effectively I'm not doing my job then. Whereas on the flip side, let's say 82.5 kilos would be what we're aiming for, but they go in, they're absolutely flying, they're feeling incredible, everything is going perfect. And they're maybe actually I'm feeling so good. Lifting's going well. I'm feeling strong. I've gotten stronger. My max probably isn't 100 kilos now. Maybe it's 105 kilos. So then actually they can take advantage of that and go maybe 85 or 87.5 kilos, and they still hit the correct RP. But again, they've taken advantage of that and they've pushed the loading on. But they're not actually creating any more fatigue. So that's what I feel so good about that. And then secondly, I'll plan like their blocks in advance. So like I'll periodize their blocks. So for example, person dependent, but I'll have a block run anywhere from 4 to 7 weeks. 7 weeks is getting on there and being very long, and probably would be a bit more abnormal. But 4 to 6 weeks would probably be pretty spot on. And then after that, I'll plan like a 2 week deload. And if everything goes to plan, then we'll just finish the 4 to 6 week block. Let's call it 6 weeks, and then we'll deload for 2 weeks. But maybe if they're not feeling good, or I can see like the trend of where their lifting's going, maybe we'll deload early. Very rarely do I extend blocks. I kind of like to take the attitude of, honestly, if we've finished these 6 weeks and you've absolutely smashed it, you've hit PBs and you're feeling good and you don't even feel fatigued, and it's like, well, let's just take the win. Let's take the win. Let's deload and then move on. I feel like often, being greedy and extending it, in experience, I don't really feel like it's necessarily worth it. I think like sometimes it's really good to kind of finish a block, but not knowing what you can lift. You're like, I actually, feel like I could have done much more, than leaving a block being like, well, I know what I can't lift because I've just failed it.
That's brilliant. When just for people that are listening as well, when you do a deload block, what does that look like? For like what does a deload week look like in comparison, say like week 6?
Yeah. Okay. So week 6, for